Hey guys, it's Amelia. Today I'm going to do my October reading wrap-up. This is my last wrap-up for the year. I'm not going to do one for November or December because I have a lot of videos planned that I'm going to make for you guys. So I will just do a big year wrap-up at the end of December. So look forward to that. Since it is October, I have read some spooky books. I'm also going to recommend some spooky books that I did not read currently, but are very good for this time of the year. However, the first book that I read this year is called A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. It is the second book that Hank Green, John Green's brother, has written, and it was so good and so relevant to right now. It is a sci-fi adult fiction book, and I really enjoyed the first book in this series, and the second one was just as good. It was so good. I definitely recommend reading this one. Definitely like 5 stars. The whole plot of this series is that the main character is this girl who lives in New York, and she is a graphic designer, like me, and she is going about her day, and suddenly there's this large sculptural man on the sidewalk around the corner from her, and so she ends up making a vlog about it to be like, what the hell's going on? And then it turns out that this statue is actually an alien life form thing. And she has the exclusive vlog content, and then she starts making all these YouTube videos and stuff, and she becomes really famous from it. And it's all about her and her friends trying to figure out what the aliens want, and also how society would deal with aliens' contact on Earth. So it's very interesting. It deals a lot with how social media would play into current events in our society, and I just think it's so interesting. The second book was just like so relevant to right now. It's all about how polarized the US has become and society has become as a result of social media, and how social media and technology are advancing so quickly and maybe they shouldn't, and also the aliens. And it was just such an interesting, like, fun little book, so I recommend this one. Next, I read Rebecca. This book is so spooky. I have wanted to read this for a very long time. It was my grandma's favorite book when she was my age, so I thought I'd finally read it since it came out on Netflix as a movie, and it's spooky, so it's like perfect for the season. It's like an older book, so it's set in like the earlier 1900s, I think. So if you're into that, check this book out. It does have some dated concepts and phrases throughout it, but that's because it was written a very long time ago. Now, I'm gonna try to explain this plot without giving any spoilers away, so let's see how this goes. Okay, so the main character is a girl. You don't know her age, you don't ever find out her name, which is actually very interesting how it's written to avoid using her name the entire time. Very interesting. And then you also don't really know what she looks like at all. So it's essentially you. Like, your name, this is it. It's a your name book. But it's written in like the 1900s. So, I'm just gonna call her the girl for this so that you understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, so the girl is an orphan, of course, and she is essentially like the ward of this boisterous, really loud American lady. And so the American lady is like super gossipy and annoying and like really just involved in everybody's business, and they're living in this hotel in Monte Carlo in France, and the American lady and her and the girl are at dinner one day, and then this man walks in, and it's Maxim de Winters, and the American lady's like, oh my god, do you know who that is? That's Max de Winters. His wife died last year. We should go talk to him. And so they go and like talk to him, and the American lady makes a fool of herself, and the girl's really embarrassed, and then the American lady ends up falling sick, and so the girl is just sort of like wandering around, and Maxim de Winters happens to see her and is like, you can't eat alone for lunch, you should eat with me, come eat with me. And so then they hang out for a little bit, and then they start hanging out a lot, and then the American lady is like, I'm done with Monte Carlo, let's move back to New York. And the girl's like, America? I can't go to America. And so she tells Max, and then Max is like, move in with me to my ginormous estate, Manderley. Let's go. And they've only really known each other for like a month, and he is like in his 50s and she's in her 20s, but like whatever. And they get married and they go back to the estate, and then that is when all the spooky stuff happens. It is crazy. This is literally, I just gave you the synopsis for maybe the first 5 chapters, and then the entire rest of the book is the girl like getting used to life at Manderley, the estate, and trying to figure out how the wife died. The wife's name is Rebecca, and she died mysteriously last year, and so the girl just is trying to figure out bits and pieces of what happened by talking to different people, and she has all these like very imaginative like what if scenarios where she like starts freaking out, and it's very spooky. Like, I wouldn't classify it as a horror book, like it's not scary, it's just the whole time you're sort of like, oh my god, what happened? Like, how did she die? Like, is something bad gonna happen to the girl? Like, it's so spooky. So I definitely recommend this book. However, I watched the Netflix movie and it sucks, so don't watch the Netflix movie. There's also an older movie version. I heard that one's pretty good. The Netflix version is just like, I mean, the acting is really good. It's got Armie Hammer and Lily James in it as the main characters, and it's like visually very beautiful, but the direction and the writing were really bad. Like, there's some really weird editing in it, and there's no like suspense to the movie, you know? Like, this book is really suspenseful and like spooky, and the movie was not, and so it's very disappointing. But check out the book, it's very good. Next, I reread the Hush Hush series. I have a lot to say about this. So Hush Hush is a 4-book series, is a young adult fantasy, is written by Becca Fitzpatrick. The covers of all the books are terrible, and I have so much to talk about this series. I really liked this series back in middle school. I think I first read it in like 7th grade. I've reread it a couple of times since, just because I like the spooky vibe of it. I definitely recommend reading the first one. The first one is actually a like good little like trashy, smutty young adult fantasy book. The next 3 are just literally awful. They're just such bad writing. I'll talk about that in a little bit. First off, let me just explain what's going on. If you like Twilight, I would check these out. If you like Supernatural, I would check these out. If you like angels, check this out. This book is essentially like Twilight, but instead of there being vampires and werewolves, it is fallen angels and archangels and this other group of extraterrestrial people called Nephilim, which, oh, it's just so good. I really like this first book. It's a good book. We got a really hot, spooky man. The reason I say this book is perfect for this season and for like spooky times is because it's set in Maine, and she lives on this like really big farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and so there's constantly like mist, and like, is she gonna have intruders in her house? I don't know. And then like, ooh, and it's set around October because there's this holiday in the book. It's actually a Jewish holiday called Cheshvan, or Heshvan. I don't really know if I'm saying it correctly, but it is the 1 month of the Jewish calendar that there are no holidays in it, which makes it an unholy month. So it's spooky. To generally sum up the plot of the whole series, Nora Gray is your average girl. She's, of course, that's how they always start out. And she lives in Maine in this cool big farmhouse, and she is like a straight A student, and she goes into biology class, and the teacher mixes up the seating arrangements so she can't sit with her best friend anymore, and now she's stuck with this guy named Patch, who is like super rebellious, wears all black, is like super mysterious, and like doesn't really talk to anybody and is a really bad student. And Nora is like, oh my god, I need to change seats, this is gonna be awful. And they meet and then trouble ensues. And that's pretty much what the whole series is. To explain the mythology of the series a little more, there is angels, obviously, and then if the angels do something bad, their wings are torn out and they fall to earth and become fallen angels. And the fallen angels essentially have all the exact same powers as normal angels do, but they can't feel anything, like they can't feel touch sensation. And so on Cheshvan, during this month of Cheshvan, they're able to possess human bodies, or Nephilim bodies, and then they could feel through the Nephilim body. And then Nephilim are when a human and a fallen angel have a child, they have a Nephilim who's like half human, half angel, right? So they have a little bit of powers, but not a lot, and they're also immortal. And if the Nephilim swear fealty to the fallen angels, then the fallen angels can possess them. That's like how that works. My neighbor just started doing lawn mowing, so I don't know if you can hear that, but I hope you can't. So the first book, Hush Hush, is a really cute little like fantasy adventure. There's like so much stuff happening, so much drama, so many events, so many near-death experiences. There's a lot of scenes that really remind me of Twilight, with like the fact that they like met in biology class and they have this whole like really weird interaction in biology class, and the build up to the big scene at the end was like super scary. You're like, oh no. And then I would pretty much describe the second, third, and fourth books as like a new moon type of vibe, where they're fighting and neither of them are happy and they're not together. And so that's partially why the second, third, and fourth books suck. But the writing in the second, third, and fourth book is just so bad as well. Like, the plot doesn't really make sense. It doesn't seem like there's an end goal to the plot. It just is like happening. And there's lots of like events and you're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? But like, there's no foreshadowing, or if there is foreshadowing, she like must have forgotten that she foreshadowed it, because then she never uses it again. There's like this big dance that happens in one of them, but the dance never happens. Like, there's all this drama about what dress they're gonna wear, and then it never happens. And like, there's just a lot of stuff that it just pisses me off, because it's just really bad writing. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Also, there's no character growth. There's just absolutely no character growth throughout the 3 books. Like, this one is pretty good. It's like introducing you to the characters in the world, and it's got this fun little arc. It's got this many little spooky events happening. But the second, third, and fourth book literally suck. Also, the covers of them, I think, are hilarious. Like, what is this? Also, I've reread this series a couple of times, but the only scenes I remember in the entire series is the roller coaster scene from the first book and the gym scene from the first book. And then I also distinctly remember this other scene with a feather in her bedroom, but I've just reread the entire series and I can't find it anywhere, so I don't know. These books they suck. They just really suck. This one is the only good one. You should read this one if you like young adult fantasy, and then forget that the rest of the series exists. I'm also not a super big fan of how she wrote the characters, because Nora is just sort of like the female who's in love with the man and like will do anything for him, but like she isn't her own person. Like, the only reason she's existing in the story is like for him, which doesn't make sense to me because she's the main character. But besides that, it's good. It's a fun little fantasy. Patch is really hot, so like there's that. Another thing that really pisses me off, that is like sort of a spoiler but not really, Patch has like 2 names, and in the second book they introduce the second name and they use it for like 5 chapters, and then she just gives up on that second name and never uses it again, and they never acknowledge it. But the second name is better than Patch. Patch is like a dog's name. Are you joking? Like, what? Ugh. Anyways, I'm really frustrated with this series. Overall, I'd probably give it 2 stars, but this one I really like. I would give this one 4 stars. Just forget that the rest of the series exists. Currently, I am still reading Half of a Yellow Sun. I know, I've been reading this one for so long, but it is quite dense. It's like a historical fiction, and so it's not like the exciting fantasy that I'm used to. I'm about halfway through it right now. I really like it. It's just not a thrilling fantasy book that I usually read, and so it's just taking me a while. I'm hoping to finish this soon, though. I'm expecting to finish it within the next month. So there's that. And I'm also reading Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets because it's spooky season, and Harry Potter makes me think of spooky season. We love Harry Potter, written by Daniel Radcliffe. Great book. Last but not least, I have a couple recommendations for this time of year. A great book to read during spooky season, fall time, is Scorpio Races by Maggie Steifvater. I don't know if I said her name correctly, but I love her books. Her books are they're just so good. Like, the characters are so interesting. It's so well written. Like, Anyways, she has this one standalone book called Scorpio Races, and it's set in like October or November, I'm pretty positive, and it's about like kelpies, I guess you would call them, like water horses. It's about how they have this race every year where they try to like mount and ride these water horses, and it's spooky and it's Halloween season. It's like such a good November vibes type of book, so I'd recommend that one. I'm not reading it this year because I just read it last year, but she also has this other series called The Raven Boys, and she has a spin-off series from that, and those also give me fall vibes because there's this like cool forest in it, and it's got this adventure story, and that series is so good, you guys. You need to check it out. And last but not least, always this time of year I feel like is the perfect time to read Outlander. It is one of my favorite series. All the books in the series are very fall vibes for me. I'm not really sure why. I guess because it's like very naturey and like they're running through forests, and I associate forests with fall, I guess. But I really recommend those books. They are pretty big, but they're so good. If you like the TV show Outlander on Starz, you will definitely like the books. It's just so good. I just love Outlander so much. I think I'm on the 5th one now. Anyways, if you guys have any other spooky books, let me know down below because I am looking for more books to read this fall. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys check out these books. Let me know if you end up reading any of these because I'd love to talk about books. Thank you guys for watching, guys. Bye!